Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Zeal Sessions. We dedicate this space to sharing with you and bringing as much value to you as we possibly can by sharing the insights and wisdom that we learn from other people in the industry, as well as what it takes to craft incredible experiences for customers and teams. And so I couldn't be more excited than to have this guest on. And so we're going to be diving into a conversation with a visionary who's not just changed the game once, but continues to shape the future of technology. Andy Ballester isn't just the co-founder and original CTO of GoFundMe, which is a platform that revolutionized charitable giving for everybody, making it accessible and empowering for millions of people worldwide. I've used it. I'm sure you've used it. But in addition to that, he's also at the forefront of the AI revolution that's happening right now that we're all experiencing as the co-founder and CPO of EyePop.AI. We're going to get into all of that. But that EyePop is working to bring cutting-edge computer vision to the masses. So his work embodies the intersection of tech innovation and real-world impact. So without further ado, let's welcome someone who crafts technology to open new possibilities for all of us, Mr. Andy Ballester. How are you doing today, Andy?
Hey, good. How's it going? Great to be
here. I actually didn't tell Andy I was going to be doing an intro, but there we go. He is a man. You're a man of many. I guess like you're a doer. You're somebody who actually has a vision, and then takes the action and pushes things through. So that I admire your body of work. I admire. I've actually watched talks of yours online, and just you share your knowledge and wisdom. Really appreciate your contributions to all of our lives. It's amazing.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I think that's great.
So rather than asking you some big open-ended question, what I'd love to do is if you could take us back to sort of the beginning of the journey, right? What sparked the idea for GoFundMe, and what were some of the hurdles that you faced early on?
Yeah, so I started off my career in college. I joined my first startup, which was good because I would go on to never use my college degree. But I just loved the ability to push out code and have somebody using it the next day, and just having that really rapid impact in your user's life. We're going to be talking about accessibility of technology today, and I think one of the early experiences that shaped my the trajectory of my career and how I think about technology and product was from that early startup. We were building a web product in 2000 for Central Illinois used car dealers, and talk about a tech timid audience at the time. The typical folks we were interfacing with, didn't have internet at home in those days. It was at their place of work, and there'd be like one machine in the back, like a desktop computer that was connected to the internet. And so building a product for that sort of audience, you have to have the idea of this has to be easy at all times when you're working on it. And so that would shape kind of how I thought about product in general. I went on to move to San Diego. um, I joined a startup. It was 2003 when I moved here, so 20 years
Okay.
ago. Not a great time for engineers just joining the workforce. It was kind of in that post second.com bubble burst, and it was a rough time to figure things out. But who was hiring was some like entrepreneurial startups that had big ideas, and so I joined one here. I met a ton of great people. It was the time where I learned how to go from software engineer to tech lead to product manager to eventually leading engineering. And so um, getting 5 years of just MBA level experience in a really tight time frame was awesome. It definitely shaped everything I did. But learning all that and meeting those people, one of whom would go on to become my co-founder for GoFundMe, was just incredibly important and serendipitous. And it was hard. It was a grinder
Yeah.
of a company. But I learned that, even more than I love technology, I love the interface of where technology meets product and that actual delivery to that end user of some value. And so we would take that, both Brad Damphouse and myself would take that into GoFundMe and figure out what that meant to us in a new kind of thing that we had never done before, which was fintech.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, GoFundMe, I think it's kind of hard to remember now because so much
Yeah.
has happened over the years, right? But
Yep.
GoFundMe back, that's 2000 circuit, like 2010, correct?
Well, so
Is
we actually started in 2008, so even earlier.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so we went through a rebrand in 2010 to GoFundMe, but our original product was actually called Create a Fund, and we were Create a Fund for the first 2 years of our existence. And so in 2008, I was talking with Brad. We had both gone through a lot of tribulations with startups, and we're kind of looking for the next thing. We're like, well, we're both broke, so this sounds like a good time to start a company together. But we knew we wanted to have a concept that would do good in the world. We knew we wanted to be in a transaction in some way. We'd seen too many startups at that period of time where the model was get a large audience, a lot of eyeballs, question mark business model. And so we didn't want to do that. We wanted to do something where we were helping folks and there was a transaction of some kind. Our first concept was this thing we called Coin Piggy. We never ended up building it out, but
Did you say
the
Coin
idea,
Piggy?
yeah, Coin
Okay.
Piggy.
Okay. Okay.
And we
Well, I forgot to put that in the bio. I'm sorry.
oh no, yeah, no,
Founder
it
of
never
Coin
existed
Piggy.
except on
Yes.
paper. So but we wanted to help people save money. That's something that got us through the ups and downs of startup life. You don't always get a paycheck, especially in early startups. And so having that ability to save and just being really frugal people and seeing our friends have high car payments and just putting a lot of things on credit cards, we're like, okay, let's think about how else we could help folks. And we wanted to gamify it in a and some of these concepts are going to sound really familiar, but we had a meter. And if you wanted to save up for a TV, great. We want you to have that TV, but let's have you save up for it instead of throw it on a credit card. And so you would save some amount of money every month. The meter would go up to 100%. Hopefully, we could on the back end get you a deal for that TV to take off a little bit of dough that you had to shell out.
Yeah.
And that concept, we loved where it was going. The interface was looking good. But when we got into the fintech at the time, the only way to move that money around was with call it a 3% tax of the interchange of any provider that was going to move that money. And so
Well, and the reality was
you look at it and it's like,
fintech wasn't actually a thing
Yeah,
then, right? It was like so new, and so it was very hard to transact
right.
online,
Yeah,
and
no,
right.
there was very few players, and that would play like a huge role in our original story. But the only way to do it was like to lose 3% of every transaction. It was a terrible savings account, you know. But we liked the concept in there that uh, we had built viral products before together. We like the concept of, well, what if my aunt wants to kick in $20 for my TV? I don't really care about the 3% in that case, and it makes it viral in nature. I want to tell a lot of people about what I'm saving up for. And so we explored that concept a little bit deeper. And so our first product, Create a Fund, was, we called it personal fundraising, but it was, what would you put out into the world where a lot of people would want to give into? And so, and a lot of the original use cases we thought of are actually kind of what GoFundMe uses today, or is known for today.
Yeah.
But we knew it was going to be a lot of people raising money for themselves, for their friends, for their community. And you know, we started off in a really mission-driven direction, and we were fortunate enough to be able to keep that mission-driven nature of the company for its existence. And so we thought, like, what if we could change the way the world gives money? And in 2008, you got to remember, there was no Venmo, there was no real peer-to-peer. Yeah, PayPal was around, but the majority of the people in the US were not on PayPal.
Right.
Um, it was like a more specialized thing. People at the time, and still to this day, most people were living paycheck to paycheck. And we knew that there's things that interrupt paychecks and crises and things that you really do want to have the support of your family and friends around you. And so, and looking at what would that product look like, it actually kind of looked like a very social version of that original Coin Piggy. And so we got that out in 2008, and started figuring out how to get this product out here. And, you know, like, to give a benchmark, I like to talk about, my mom at the time wouldn't give her credit card in to buy something online. So that's the
Right.
level of, like, anxiety around money and the internet we were dealing with at the time. And so that's something we had to learn our way around. And
For sure.
yeah,
Yeah, because it was still early adopter mode, right? And
right.
so general population, getting them to participate. But you really did, GoFundMe really did change the landscape of personal fundraising. The ability to have people contribute to something that you're working on, doing, a TV, but from
Yeah.
and have family and friends join in on that. Can you? This is kind of a magical. Maybe it was a moment, maybe it wasn't. But like, could you describe the moment when you realized the impact that GoFundMe was going to have in people's lives?
Yeah, some of our early users, and they really had to stick with us because of how nascent fintech was. When you were giving money to somebody, they were having to leave our site, and then go create a PayPal account. And at the time, that process, and like, made you put in your social security number and a whole host of other crazy things. So if you think that you have like friction in your product because you have to ask for a phone number or address, you can't believe the friction involved in asking for a social security number. But there were some folks that early on stuck with it. They went through the process, even though it was a really hard UI for us to present to users, and used it for incredible things, raising money for their friends, family. We saw somebody very early on raise money for a marathon she was doing, and she was doing it on behalf of a family member.
Oh,
She
cool. Yeah.
raised a couple $1,000, and that was a huge celebration for us at the time. No one had ever done that before.
Yep.
And so we were super excited to see things like that. And then much later on, once we cracked what is the fintech code of how we wanted to do personal fundraising, later known, you know, it's in the to be lumped in with crowdfunding. Then we really saw use cases pour in, and the speed at which help got given, I think, was the most jaw dropping part of the entire experience. Someone who would go with just an, you know, heartfelt, authentic plea to their friends and family about a really tough time they're going through. And we would see, donations start to roll in 5 to 10 minutes after that because of the speed
Wow.
of the platform. It was incredible.
That is
And,
incredible.
the types of um, binary campaigns that we got acquainted with on a daily basis were these parts of people's lives. They were a milestone where either you help, I get help fixing my car and I go back to work, or I don't, and the problem compounds because now I'm figuring out how I get to work every day. And the median campaign size was $1,200, and it's those types of campaigns, those $1,200. Like, I just need a little bit of help to get me through what's happening right now, or the community needs a little bit of help to solve something that is a short-term crisis amid longer-term turmoil. Those were just so inspirational to see people come together around. It was amazing.
That's awesome. So, when you're working hard at it, you have a whole different perspective than the person who comes across it and starts using it for the first time. And I remember the first time that actually the first time I interacted with GoFundMe, it was somebody else was raising money for a friend, and they posted it, and I remember going through this. First of all, there was this really sweet process, right? It was like human centric, if you will, like how you talked to people and walked them through contributing and then sharing and all of that stuff. But it's really easy as a user to come across something that's like that and think, oh, well, like GoFundMe started now and they're big and they're all kinds of people are using them. But what was that like sort of cycle like? So you said you started in 2008 under a different name, changed
Yeah.
the name to GoFundMe in 2010, I think is and then like what was that growth like? What was the thing, the sort of critical mass point where you saw adoption really start happening? How did that happen?
Yeah. Our biggest thing that we wanted to have happen with the product is to create a viral nature with our users. We knew this product works when you tell a lot of other folks about it. And so there's great alignment between us and the users. We all want the same thing. We want the campaign organizers to raise money. And unfortunately, on the mechanical fintech side, it took us about 4 years to really figure out how to make that easy. And that was always a big focus for us. Is you have in viral products, you have 2 to 3 core flows that really matter, and
Mm-hmm.
those flows you need to iterate on hundreds, if not thousands, of times, just doing rollouts, ideally every day if you have enough traffic to experiment on, where you're learning what are the drivers between each interaction with folks. And for us, it took us 4 years to figure out the fintech part. But the good part about that is it gave us 4 years to understand everything else, outside of the fintech part. And
Right.
so figuring out how to talk to our users, how to make interactions softer where they needed to be, how to make them more accessible where they need to be. There's words that you might use that seem really obvious and aren't. And it's because of, like, and I'd like to talk later about the curse of knowledge, but it's really hard not to know what you know as a product
Uh,
manager and as a product
Sort of
builder.
try and see it through fresh eyes
Yeah.
and a user's eyes, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so we had been quietly in the dark building this Ferrari that we really needed that spark plug of fintech to put in there, without which it's just not going to start, right? And so
Right.
we maybe raised, call it $4 million total by, from 2008 to 2011 for our users. Um, and one of our competitors approached us and they say, hey, when we grow up, we don't want to compete with you anymore. We like what you're doing on the front end. We want to be a payments company, and we know the exact use case you're trying to solve because we're trying to solve it too, right? And we think if you co-innovate with us on this payment platform, that we could build something really special. And so we were tentative at first, but
Sure.
at the same time, we didn't have a ton of choices. We were bootstrapped, so it was lean times back then.
Yep,
And
yep.
we were doing some contract work to keep the lights on, but we were really trying to figure out how to make this work. And so we got on a whiteboard, and this partner was WePay, and we got on a whiteboard with the founders of WePay. We just like what we saw, and like even though we were apprehensive to work with them, just the idea that we could build something that was our vision in the fintech space was really compelling to us. And they had the backing and funding and know how to put all the back end rails together. And so we spent about 6 weeks building together,
Mm.
where and we knew every interaction. We'd been thinking about it for
Oh yeah.
so long at this point that it was like there was no PRD. It was like, I know exactly how this needs to work, and let's just like do it, right?
And it's still being a partnership, but how nice to be able to pull such a big dependency of what your product does. How nice to be able to pull that into a partnership that's tight knit and internal. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And so we were like, okay, time to flip the switch. We're going to push it live to 10% of our traffic. Maybe over a couple months, we'll ramp it up to 50% or whatever. And that first 24 hours were so game changing for us that we flipped it 100% the next day, because
Oh wow.
there was just no beating like what we were doing together
Yeah.
there. And, it seemed to be working, everything. Like, of course, there's always like little things you want to change, but that was December 2011. January of 2012, we raised $1 million for our users in that 1 month, which was a
Wow. That's a
huge scale up
milestone
for us.
there. One
Yeah.
month, $1 million raised for people. Yes. So
And so we saw that growth, and we knew like it's off to the races. We're gonna have
yeah.
to build a team and do all kinds of great stuff.
And I again, if we were to just wrap a bit more context into here,
Sure.
you built this company during the biggest financial crisis and recession of my lifetime, right? Like, and so just to think like you started working this thing and building this thing when the world was falling apart, and was able to find ways to raise money over those couple of years. And by around 2011, 2012, there was a lot of optimism and growth happening at that point, right? So you positioned yourself perfectly coming out of that. It's kind of
Yeah, and that
amazing.
was one of the reasons we wanted to be we had a lot of reasons for wanting to be a bootstrapped company, but that was one of the big ones. Is even if we didn't want to be a bootstrapped, there was not a lot of options in 2008 for raising money, especially for Brad and I, who were unknown at that point. It would be taking a flyer on two people who had worked in startups before, but really had no great success tracks, to look back on. And
Sure.
so I think that's one of the fun parts about being a bootstrap company. You get to write your own journey. You don't have as many maybe macroeconomic effects in those early days. You can focus on product, and that's what we wanted to do.
Awesome. So cool. So then, okay. So then GoFundMe continues to grow, continues to be adopted, continues to evolve. You at some point move into a board position and step back from daily operations, if you will.
Mhm.
And then you start transitioning and looking around in other areas, right? So can we talk about the transitioning from crowdfunding and how you find yourself like the leap to AI? Because that's quite a leap there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so what is the common thread between those two things and that drove you to decide this is the problem you want to solve next?
Yeah, I will say there's a couple of intermediate steps
Yes.
there.
Okay,
So,
please take us through those.
we went through this period basically starting in January of 2012 to when I left at the tail end of 2015. That was our period of hyper growth. We had to build and scale a team, keep it mission driven, keep the culture good, make sure we're delivering on our promise to users, and all of that. Was incredibly amazing for me, but also taxing on Brad and myself. And we found ourselves like, toward in 2015-ish, just looking around and saying, okay, we built something that we're just amazingly proud of, but it's killing us. We were
Ah,
the two of us were every C-level position in the company,
yep,
and it was time to bring in some other folks to come and help us out. And so we, long story short, made a deal process, and that one's a whole story onto itself. But
yep,
got some great VCs who helped us find EIRs to augment our exec team. And at that point, it made sense for us to transition this new exec team into full operation and have them deliver on some of these bigger goals that we had, like going international in the right way and chasing after how does personal fundraising and crowdfunding relate to what nonprofits do, especially the small and medium nonprofits. Um, and so we were able to put together this amazing executive team and step away then, and so we moved ourselves to the board, and were able to take a little bit of a rest. I had my first daughter around that time as well, and so I can't even tell you what I did for 6 months after stepping away from the day to day, because it was just kind of like that time period for me of like
yep.
just needing some sleep. But from then on, I have been mentoring startups in San Diego for the last 8 years, and so
Before
over
you,
the
okay, I want to pause
yeah
for a second. I want to
yeah
jump back in. So
yeah
the maturing process of a company
yeah
is really really hard thing for a founder to go through, right? That like kind of like starting to let go of some things, hand off things. This is like it's not just a growth of the company, but there's a lot of personal growth that happens through that process of letting
yeah
go and empowering other people to step up, and then sort of also allowing other people's ideas to start to shine through and become woven into the product, and eventually like stepping back and allowing, and also doing all of that stuff without prior experience in all of those roles. Like you grew and like you said, the two of you and Brad were all of the C level at one point,
right.
and probably limited experience in some of those roles and limited understanding of what a company that had that kind of growth trajectory should be doing in different aspects. So did you have any key mentors during that phase? People who you were able to, like, what was that like for you? Did you have people you were able to lean on and get some mentorship as that company was like rocketing and you needed to start evolving?
One of the things that we were really good at is just being hands down focused on product and our users. And, so much so it was to the detriment of we didn't have good networks. We didn't have really good relationships with mentors. San Diego at the time was a different ecosystem than it is now. And so, like, I look to some of the things that are available for startups now, especially regionally. I'm like, oh man, that probably would have been really helpful for us. But this was a while ago, and if it existed, we didn't know about it. I'll tell you that. And so,
Sure.
uh, I would say our best mentorship came from books. We were avid
Mm.
readers of other stories, and especially in startup land. And we expected our team to read it with us, and so we formed common vernaculars based off of some of these stories we were reading, and so that was really good for us. Also, our
So
partner company.
real
Oh,
quick,
sure, yeah,
I'm a huge book advocate. I'm a huge
yeah.
reader, big fan. I give out books all the time. Are there any books that come to mind that were pivotal for you, and that you said you had your team read, that some that were actually like very pivotal for you as a company?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say for me personally, and I bet Brad and some of the team would have different opinions, but um, let's see.
I know I'm
21
putting you
Laws
on the
of
spot.
Leadership. Yeah,
Okay,
21 Laws of
yeah,
Leadership. Love it. First time manager, incredibly important, especially we were trying to grow the company really swiftly. We needed to hire from within again and again and grow people with us. And so having some of these starter kits for being a first time manager were amazing. Not everything applies in that book to our experience, but
right.
it was great. Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh.
Tony Hsieh, that's
such
So
a
good.
amazing book. Oh
Yep.
man, it helped shape our customer happiness team. Of again, we're dealing with money, anxiety, the internet. There was a lot of emotion in relating to our users, and our users were very vocal. We talked to a lot of our users, and that was something that we were a high touch business. Customer happiness was
Yep.
always about half the company, and so that's something that really helped us figure out how should our happiness team talk to the product team and then form a cohesive strategy because they're the ones talking to the customer. And so love that book.
Yep.
Loads others.
Fantastic.
Lean
No, that's
Startup,
great.
Grease,
Oh yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Eric Ries, yeah. Yep. Okay. That's a good starter kit. So we'll make sure that those end up in the comments because that's something again the mentorship piece,
Yeah.
the ability to shortcut your by leaning on other people's experience. That's really what it comes down to. There's
Right. Yeah.
knowledge,
Yeah.
but experience is sort of where knowledge meets, or I'm sorry, wisdom is where knowledge meets experience, right? That's where you actually learn how and what to do and what to watch out for. Mostly what not to do, right? There's a lot of
Yes.
opportunities for that. I love I love delivering happiness, and I'm a huge advocate of just experience crafting, like designing the experience. And that's also why, I mentioned it earlier, the experience of GoFundMe was transitional for me. I remember at the time seeing a company taking a very different approach to, I guess, like the term we have now, fintech. It was human centric. It was like the transaction was, yeah, that's part of it, but that's not the focus. The focus was people and purpose and helping fulfill this need, and then and then sharing, and just that was amazing because you were able to take what is otherwise a very technical experience of this transactional funds and things, and you turn it into a human experience. So good on you. That's an amazing thing, and so I can see how books like that would be influential and really
Yeah.
help you work through that stuff. Okay, so let's jump back into where your story was.
Yeah. So mentor. So one of the opportunities I went after in my uh, post GoFundMe day to day was mentoring startups, especially here in San Diego. And so joined a lot of great incubators and mentorship networks like Evo Nexus, Ad Astra, Techstars. Um, just incredible opportunities out there to give back to the community that ultimately we built our business in. And so, in doing so, formed a lot of bonds, not just with startups here, but also the mentors of those startups with people in our ecosystem. And one of the opportunities that presented itself was to come and mentor in product and technology at Launch Factory,
Hmm.
and they had a cohort of computer vision companies come through. And so I've been thinking about computer vision since late 2020 when I was talking to Launch Factory about this, and we've been looking at companies, and we went through that early life cycle of okay, when you think about computer vision problems and in the greater AI space, um, how do you build a company on that? And so
Hmm.
when we think about how do you build a fintech company, you start by evaluating partners that are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you: Stripe, PayPal, um, et cetera. And when we think about database problems, you might go after Postgres or MySQL. There just doesn't exist that framework that the average developer can pick up and start using yet in computer vision. It's a very
Sure.
fragmented space in our like, and this is again where that curse of knowledge comes in, because we talk to a lot of machine learning engineers and they're like, oh, this is a solved problem. You just pick up this piece, you pick up this piece, you put them together, no big deal. And it's like, yeah, but what are those pieces? Like, coming in from the outside, you don't know that the first thing you should do is look at a framework and start training it and doing these experiments. These are things that you need to learn that workflow. And so there was just no concept for how does somebody from the outside start in computer vision other than starting to like put together random open source things
Yep.
and learning these things. And it's like, if you go off and do that, you basically end up, giving yourself an education on how to be a machine learning engineer. Whereas like, and then when you think of it from the company perspective, a startup to devote that much time and effort, or the amount of money that it would take to hire a machine learning engineer to come in and solve these problems, might not be worth it. And like it's not guaranteed, especially coming in from the outside of like not knowing what's in the possible solution space for computer vision. It's hard to like put that time and effort into building these things. And so when I
Yes.
mentored a cohort of 4 companies, you see these 4 companies building computer vision fundamentally different in each instance, and it seemed wrong. And so it was at that point we noticed a problem there, and wanted to explore what would something more cohesive look like.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, tying it together, because watching, yes, you had a path and you went and you saw this cohort, you saw computer vision, you thought, oh, there's, and then yes, like identifying a real problem, which, but like this thread of accessibility to the technology, of sort of democratizing the ability to leverage these technologies in everyday life, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And again, I don't, we would love to talk more about this piece, but like we Zeal had an opportunity to work with you, EyePop, on the sort of public facing interface of EyePop, which was so fun to be a part of, helping to build out a piece of that. And just to, but again, the same kind of thing, which is what I see a lot when in the development of AI and AI companies. I'm seeing a lot of people building a skill saw and a power drill, and they're like, here's a skill saw and here's a power drill, use it. And people are like, what do I need that for?
Right.
What I see with you, and this is something that I think is very different in the approach, which is you start with what is the real outcome somebody's trying to reach, right? And so you start by talking with people and saying, hey, so what's the project? You need to build something, right? You want to build a table. Okay, you need to build a table. You need, when you get to this step in the process, you're going to need to cut some boards. Well, here's a skill saw, as opposed
Right.
to, and that's, I think
Yeah.
it's a fundamentally a different approach to building a product and the purpose of that product and being able to position that product in a marketplace, right?
One thing, I learned early on, I've always firmly believed that groundbreaking technologies shouldn't be confined to a select few. And the thing that holds people back, be it in nascent fintech technology back then or AI now, is they don't know the workflow to get to something, to get to a solution. And so your product can build the workflow into that makes them smarter. It makes them more knowledgeable about what steps should I be on right now. When we think about, how to all of the great products that make something easy, like IKEA, it's like you get
Yes.
that workflow. I don't know, I'm not a handy person in real life. And so I don't know how to build any of
Well,
that stuff, but I can follow directions, right? And so
yes.
that's the key. It's like,
And
can you build it that intelligence?
I love your sort of approach to product, which this, and again, like what we got to help build with EyePop was essentially like a glorified wizard. And yes, there's dashboard, there's a lot of components to it, but the wizard of like, what do you need to do? And we're gonna make it so simple and that you don't have to think about all the things. We're just gonna say, okay, now's the moment where we connect to an input. Now's the
That's right.
moment where we define what the output is, and you
Yeah.
step people through, and that is another thread between my experience with GoFundMe and what I'm seeing you do with computer vision is GoFundMe was very much a wizard. It was like starting point, walking you through the steps of participating and why, and then what do you do afterwards? And that was another pivotal piece too, which was how do you make a campaign viral, right? And that's the sharing aspect. Now you've participated. Now you've got some skin in the game. Now you want to pass that on. So with iPop, which great shirt. It keeps popping in every now and then. What would you say are, and you've talked a little bit about this, but what would you say are some of the biggest barriers to tech accessibility that we need to overcome? What are the things that are holding us back from being able to access these technologies?
Yeah, so we put a lot of pressure on our machine learning team, and we have a really small team. So like I also include myself a little bit in the machine learning team, but we to make something that seems easy. And so like the best compliment I ever get is like, "Oh, your product is deceptively easy." Because it shows that they understand this should be harder, but like somehow we made it easy. And so there's a lot you have to do under the hood to understand these technologies. Number one, we've taken um, computer vision models that we've trained, and for our kind of general concept of like what are things that people would want to do, and they come in a variety of frameworks. When you look at the data coming out of traditional models, it's all over the place. It's all over the map. A lot of, at best, like a lot of the times you're interpreting tensors that are the outputs of these models. And so those concepts need to kind of fall to the background in a product that would be accessible to non-ML engineers. And so the first thing we did is how do we build a pipeline where we can connect a bunch of models in series or in parallel and have that output be recognizable to any old developer who's used to looking at structured data. And so I think that's our, at the core, our biggest innovation. And we've been working on that really hard to make it extremely accessible. We'll probably see some JSON later on in the demos.
Yep.
You get, it's like, okay, I understand what this is. It's a far cry different than trying to figure out what tensors have the highest probability of being true and all these other things. And um, that's the first step. Second step is identifying the right model at the right time. The way we talk about models, you won't see the word model that comes up in our product. It's about talking about the things you want to identify and the contexts in which you want to identify them. And that's the way, great machine learning scientists think about these things, but they have a lot of different terminology that we just don't share because it takes a lot of time to understand these concepts. And if we start by throwing a book at you and having to learn these concepts before coming into our product, then I think we failed in some way. These are things that we can bring in later, especially as you want to do more with what you're finding. And so having that configuration type management in the background is important to us.
So, taking good UX principles, right, where you are thinking about the user and you're trying, like I said, like you've been saying, trying to have those fresh eyes and what's the term that you're using? The curse of knowledge, right?
Yes.
So trying to see it with fresh eyes, but like, what is the real outcome? And what I think is good UX plus AI, the capabilities of AI, is allowing the potential to create flows that feel just like so accessible to anybody. You don't have to become an engineer to be able to harness and leverage the powerful technology that is, being developed. And I think that is game changing. And so companies like yours, companies like EyePop, are creating that accessibility and leveraging the technologies that's like right at the forefront and evolving regularly. And I can't wait to get into some of the demos because I really want people to see what this thing is and how it works. But I just in the time that we've worked together, I've seen the evolution of like what's possible with machine learning, with the computer vision, and And what you guys are doing with it is next level. And the other thing that you've been doing, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this process, is you literally, this product is just now hitting a public space, and you're doing this sort of beta test, and you're getting feedback for the first time from people, and you're hosting these, and I think this is brilliant. You're hosting these like hackathons where you're exposing people to the technology, allowing them to play with it, and you're taking that as feedback and learning from that feedback. Can you talk about that cycle
Yeah.
for a minute? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know from my experience as a product manager, I'm never going to get it right the first time, and you don't want to go too complex too quickly. You want to make sure you have some learnings under your belt and get it in front of people before building too many features. And so, very much Reid Hoffman quote: "If you don't go out and be a little bit embarrassed about your first product, you waited too long." So we've been building since January. We started the company in January. We got to the place at the beginning of October where it really felt like, yeah, there's some things, you're going to see it later in the demo because we're not done building, but there's some places where we could definitely improve. We understand that, but
Sure.
it might be time to start getting feedback from the community. And so we had a series of hackathons and workshops in October, which I called Poptober, that we invited people into our office, in groups of roughly 10 or so, and had them build something with us on the platform, and then gave them, 20 minutes to an hour at the end to just mess around with it. And
And
we
like
learned
these are
terrible things.
people
Yeah.
who own different types of businesses. I
Yeah.
say normal people. They're not engineers. Is that like you were?
Well, so we tried to
Some
get a
were.
good, healthy mix of industries, experiences. We had students, we had content creators, we had developers,
Mm,
pretty wide range of backgrounds of the folks that came in and
awesome.
built stuff with us, and definitely a wide range of industries, certainly.
Awesome. Okay, can we jump into some demos? Can you show us this
Sure. Yeah,
awesome
let's
new
do it.
product?
Okay,
Okay.
great.
We are
Okay.
sharing your screen now.
All right. So I'm going to do this in the form of a video, both because I find it hard to drive and talk at the same time, and also to cut down on some of the time here because I know we have limited time. I'm going to pause it right here. So this is what so you saw the dashboard. First thing you do is create a pop. A pop for us is a small piece of computer vision functionality that's coupled with an AI worker server that does the work. And so right now, our compute is all happening in our cloud. This is soon to be augmented by the ability to do it in your cloud or your private network. And then lastly, we want to push it to the edge, but all with the same interface. And so the concept here is you can create an app pop. The app pop is a prototyping tool. It's a low code development tool to get up and running quickly and to experiment with computer vision. There's an API pop. This puts all of our technology behind a REST endpoint that you can point images, videos. You can link in live streams with RMTP and WebRTC, and get the analysis in real time. And then report pop. We don't have an example of report pops here to build within our product yet. This is coming later this year, but we're doing some case studies behind the scenes. And what this allows you to do is just point us to a giant batch of images or video. We're going to roll up giant insights around those things and give you detailed covariance analysis based on, if you give us success rate based on images or video, we can start to tell you what human expressible features in those images or video lead to better success. And so here we're going to create a API type pop. And the first thing we do is you name your pop. This is really just for yourself to organize your pieces of functionality. We provision you an AI worker server on the fly. Then we have you start to, and you can see me waving there. We have a live preview of what you're doing. You can switch out this live preview for another data source if you want, and start to get live feedback on how you're configuring your pop. If you look here, I'm selecting what do I want to find. And so for this demo, we're going to use person body points and other common objects. But if you look at this list, these are the list of things that we're coming out with. And we think about models behind the scenes and combinations of models is two categories. One is live and one is precision. And so live things like I'm doing here, you might want to use on a real-time stream, whereas precision I may want to use on big batches of images. So that's it for creating an API pop. Now this functionality of live person body points and common objects is behind an API that I can hit. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take that configuration info that was on the last screen. I've now put it in an external product. This is actually from our demo GitHub that you can go and check out. But with a series of really easy to use fetches, I'm able to now create an interface where I can drag and drop images and have analysis around those images.
And what's
and
a
so
presentation without a picture of cats, right? What's a presentation
yeah,
without
exactly,
cats?
right?
There you go.
And so that first example, I dropped in the cat photo and you saw that big long JSON that came back. That's all the information that you're getting from the API. In this one, we're consolidating that into, hey, what are just the class labels in there and give me some counts. So very simple manipulation of a JSON array. Now we're going to get into some of the visual data. And so within that JSON array is not just what is in this photo, but where in the photo is it? And so you can see we're putting reticles around the different objects we're finding. And then lastly, when you have a person, we have body key points, soon to be hand key points with face mesh, so that you can do really detailed information. And so we're going to see that in a second.
So real quick.
One of the other things. Oh yeah,
go for it. Real quick question. Is the AI? Obviously, but I wanted to raise this to the surface. There's a lot of round objects in the world, and it's the AI is leveraging the context of these cats there in conjunction with this ball, and essentially identifying this as a sports ball. Is that right?
So yes and no. Yes, context is very important. Color, shape, relative size, where it is in the image, all these things play a part to identifying an object and object detection. And so like all of that does have a say in what ultimately comes out of this example, model.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, and so on the right-hand side, one of the things we did with folks during Poptober was had them write these really semantic rules. And so you can see we went a little nuts on writing rules here. The ones in red are false. The ones that are in green are true. And so by writing something as simple as like the amount of people are greater than 0, that's the no people rule. And so that evaluates as true in this instance. There are no people in here, but we do have cats. And so you'll see as we put in some other types of images, these rules will be reevaluated each time that we enter something else in.
And the AI is just doing all that work. There's no code behind that. Essentially, you're not having to write anything other than only one person, right? Like, and it's the AI is interpreting that.
So behind the scenes, this looks a little bit more structured. That's just a name of that rule, but we're gonna look at some of conditionals and something else that we're doing, and
great.
You can start to understand how you write those things. An example of finding a person, but not just the person, but the way her body is posed within the image. There's just so much you can do with person landmarks. In this example, instead of putting in an image, we're just pointing it right at a URL on the web. The stuttering of this image or video is just how I recorded it, which is a bummer. But you can see this analysis is actually happening faster than real time. We're not asking the AI to do too much. So we actually finished the analysis way before we start doing things here. Now, if we go back for 1 second, so you can see these pose positions, they're coming out frame by frame on this video. And so we have the frame data on the right here in JSON. These are things that I then use using our JavaScript SDK to create these nice visuals. And there's a lot of customization you could do for these. When you take these poses, you can then put those in other things. You can start to analyze relative points because these are all just two-dimensional pieces of data. In the case of when we have our face mesh and hand mesh, they're actually even three-dimensional pieces of data that you can then use and do math on and get all kinds of neat things going. In this next example, this is a little bit about how we want to show how you can overlay photos. We're going to use some silly examples here, but we have case studies behind the scenes using using the same technology for much more serious um, topics. One of the things we're going to do here is we're going to find specific features within a scene, and we're going to use that to draw something on top of them. And so in this case, we're going to draw fake sunglasses every time we find people's eyes. And so this is our CTO, Torsten. I'm giving him some sunglasses here. We're using, you can see along the left-hand side, we're using a type of drawing called pose follow. That's like our terminology. We're going to look for people. We're going to look for the anchors, the right eye and the left eye. We're going to draw some fun sunglasses on top of them. We're using this same technology to augment Petri dish slides so that you can find the exact pixels of where a certain colony of bacteria is growing. Same concept, just doing a little bit more fun here. So there's a lot of things that can be done with photo overlay, with video overlay that solve real world problems. In this instance, the eyes are not level here, and so
Right.
we're having to take into account rotation and things like that into the concept of where we would put sunglasses on this person. Um, those are all things that you're going to have in the real world of trying to level out things or find things that are not quite level to the actual plane of photo that you're analyzing. And so just some fun examples there of what you can do to overlay some photos. Now we're going to create a new pop, and this one's going to be an app type pop. That's our prototyping tool. In this one, we're going to do something that we saw kind of popularized at the end of the summer with the Barbie movie of a cinematic look at how couples interrelate to each other. And so in this time, we're using, instead of our live preview, I want a image preview because we're going to be throwing some image data through this instead of our cameras. I'm going to look for the highest midpoint and the lowest midpoint on this person's body. So if you imagine drawing a line through somebody's center, that's the line that would describe this. And so so we just created that logic in the draw. There's some other logical things that I'm kind of skipping through here. It doesn't have to be about drawing. It can be about text messaging or emailing somebody, pinging a webhook, pinging a WebSocket connection. And so in this example, we're drawing the person's body key points. We're also drawing a green line through their highest and lowest midpoint. So if you've seen some of the cinematic looks at different couples, especially in kind of BuzzFeeds and meme type blogs, you would look at this couple and the concept is that they're very equal and they're standing in the couple because they have relatively parallel lines. And so silly example, but when you think about the concept of understanding somebody's center of balance, where relative parts of their body are, there's a lot of implications that we're exploring in case studies with physical therapy, with remote mental health, with remote medical attention. And so lots of fun things that and serious things that we can do with this kind of drawing technology to just call people's attention to relative positions. This is going to be the last example. In this one, I think is the most interesting of our prototyping code. So again, an app type hop. We're going to draw the pose on a person. We're also going to give it some low code here. And so we're going to choose the counter. And in the counter, I have and this is in our GitHub, we have some examples of some different exercises. These represent essentially little state machines of things that I want to see in a video. It could be a live stream, it could be a pre-recorded video, but these things will happen, and every time it goes through the entire state machine, it's going to increase the counter that's displayed on the screen by one. So in this one, we're going to do a double arm bicep curl. We're looking for the left wrist and the right wrist to be below their respective elbows and then above their respective elbows. And so in here, you'll see me, and this is pretty embarrassing, but in the conference room, pointing out the counter right there. So watch that as I
Yep.
do some motions. There's nothing happening, but as we do the exercise, we can start to see that counter increment. It's running through those set of 4 instructions, and every time it runs through, we increment it there. And so
See, now
those are all,
that is amazing. I love that,
yeah,
and that also is. I mean, anybody watching that can see real world applications, right? Like
absolutely.
all of these different things. Some of them are a little further removed from what I might use it in daily life. But I loved. You also talked about in your in your sessions. You talked about someone who had a liquor brand that was doing advertisement and having there was a very manual process they had. Can you talk through that real quick as another application?
Absolutely. And by the way, too, like in our session where we were showing off that fitness repetition counter, somebody came up with a golf swing counter that I myself I was like, how did you do that? It was awesome. And like that was in like 15 minutes after like messing around with our low code. So that was super validating for us and exciting. But another example, and going back to thinking about those rules that I had showed where we were putting in the cats and then the lady doing yoga. Those rules are behind the scenes, that same load code language. And so you can put in small rules like that to determine the existence of certain things within an image. And you can also likewise do it as frames of video. And so one of the concepts that somebody had, they were running a startup called Crafted Pour. Crafted Pour is a way for bartenders to connect to craft distilleries, to connect to customers in their brand guidelines. They want the cocktail that the bartender has made, and they also want the bottle of the distillery. And those two things should be there, and that's kind of part of their brand guidelines of how you upload a photo. And so this is a very manual process right now. Within a few minutes of hacking around with our low code, he was able to create a little rule set that should just rip through images and say, "Yep, there's a cocktail," and he's looking for a glass and wine glass and cup, and there's a bottle. And if those things are true, we're good to go here. And that was really validating to see. We solved a real world problem that night, and didn't take a lot of time to do it after our workshop.
Even
So
better,
super excited. Yeah,
he solved his
yeah,
problem with your
solved it
tool,
himself. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
How cool is that? And
Not just yeah,
when you say low code, we're talking about just the ability to quote unquote program in normal language, right? So
right.
you're essentially just describing your use case, if you will, or you're describing what you need it to watch, but in
That's
normal
right.
language, just like we were seeing. It's like we
Yeah,
want to know when the left wrist is above the left elbow, right? And in
yeah,
conjunction with that, the right wrist is above the right elbow.
that's right.
And when that's true, this thing's true. And then when it's below, the left wrist is below the left elbow, and the right wrist is below the right elbow. That's one rep essentially, right?
That's right.
So
Yeah.
that's just amazing to create that accessibility to say, hey, if you can describe something, if you can
Hmm.
describe a use case of how something works and how something functions, then you can basically leverage this tool for almost anything you can think of. It's like, and this is something that it was super fun to hear, is just how you watched how creative people can be with these tools when they're given the tools and they have their own problems and things that they're trying to solve for, right? So very
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah. It was very, very inspirational to see that like people kind of got it. And like, more power to them, because like our parser is still a little clunky. That's not even V1. That's, V, zero point 0.5, we'll call it. We're working on it. I would love to go from parsing language to full-fledged LLM interpretation of semantics of language and being able to talk like we talk to ChatGPT or any other large language model right now, that we're used to really having a conversation with it. And so that's where we want to get to in our ability to prototype. And yeah, like a developer can do that bicep curl thing easily by comparing relative positions of all of those body points, coming back in the JSON. But I might want to do it because that has more power that way potentially. But at the same time, like I can do it in the parser way faster, and so why not get up and running quicker, and then I can always rewrite that later or add to it, add more logic and points.
Well, and
And
I think like in a regular company, the ability
yeah,
to leverage different people to be able to do these things, right? So I don't have
right,
to leverage my engineering team to do something I want to do on the marketing side of things. I can actually have the marketing team do it with a tool like this because it creates
absolutely.
that accessibility to computer vision, right?
Or at least prototype it and get the
Yep.
vision across of what they want to create, and then have that be integrated into a larger product in any other way they want to do it.
Okay, so um, big picture,
Yes.
as we start to wrap up here, big
Yeah.
picture, where are we going? Where's it going in your
Yeah.
vision, like in your
Yes.
understanding? Where, yes.
Our vision is, what is the internet and people in general obsessed with? Images and videos. 80% of all business data is unstructured, and most of that is in the visual data that we have that just does not have a structure that we can mine for insights and data. Every day, people watch 1 billion hours of video on YouTube. Google's senior vice president said that 40% of young people go to TikTok or Instagram to look for where they're going to eat versus Google Maps or search. Trillions of hours of security camera footage is taken each year. This We live in a visual world. When it's accessible to everybody, the types of use cases that we're going to see in solutions haven't even been thought of yet. The companies that we enable with these tools, when you have low code AI together helping you solve problems at a low price point, I am so ready for new startups to come in and just disrupt the heck out of stuff when they have these tools at their disposal. And so just leveling this playing field of, we don't need a big ML team. We need to just understand our visual data. It becomes a different question. And then we can start to understand what users, how users behave and how they look at the world in a much better way.
Okay, so that's amazing, and I love that, and I'm excited for that future potential, and just it's so, there's a lot of fear that's people misunderstanding or not understanding, as well as like real fears around development of AI and whether it's happening in a in a ethical manner and in a manner that's smart and thought out. But I
Yeah.
love uses and applications like this where I truly see our potential as humanity, just mass. It's like having a superpower, right? And so if it's leveraged in ways that are helpful and assistive, and that's what you're building, and I appreciate that. I think it's exciting. I love being a part of it. Like the fact that we got to work with you to help build out those interfaces, and that tooling is it's just a remarkable opportunity for us. And so thank you again for working with us. Being a client is amazing. As we wrap up, I want to jump to sort of like you as a leader, because you don't you don't focus on yourself very much. You love like helping and empower other people through building products. But I guess if you were to leave other people watching, entrepreneurs, leaders, people who are thinking about starting a company or in the process of developing a product, like an AI product or not, what's a piece of advice that you could leave someone in that position with, especially the ones that are aspiring to sort of make a difference in through technology?
Yeah, I would say I do focus on the consumer. The consumer is the number one focus of the company at all times. We know we're not going to get things right, and so Getting it in the hands of the consumer faster is better than trying to get it right internally. We know there's going to be a lot of iterations, so setting your company product technology up for rapid iteration, especially in the beginning, to get the product right, is really important. And then lastly, just have a pipeline within your company to always be accepting where those friction points are coming in. Users are generally really good at identifying things they don't like, not always so great at identifying solutions. And that's where the fun of being a product manager comes in. But if you know where they're unhappy and where there's friction and where there's confusion, then you know where to go to fix it, and have small sprints of changing language, changing those flows, and figuring out how to make it easier for folks. It just brings them in quicker. They have a better time. They're able to get in deeper into your product to tell you more interesting things about what you should be doing.
Well, awesome. Thank you for that. That is super. I hope that, I hope that if you're out there building a product, like Andy is a true inspiration because the way he approaches these things, where his heart is, like where his curiosity is in helping solve real problems for real people and connect people to technology in ways that they weren't able to before, and bring it down to a level that everybody gets to play, right? True democratization of technology is a goal that's really hard, right? And so I appreciate you, Andy. I appreciate what you stand for, what you believe, what you are aspiring to do for humanity, and I hope that some people who were able to watch today were truly inspired by this this session that we had and this conversation we had. Thank you so much, Andy, and again, everyone who's watching, make sure to follow both Zeal, of course, and Andy and EyePop in all of the places. EyePop.AI is obviously where you can find EyePop, but where can people see the conversation around EyePop, Andy?
Yeah, I think our biggest channel right now is LinkedIn, and so we have a company page on LinkedIn. Please follow us there. And as we start to get more more public, we will be releasing lots of great demos and things that the community is building on our platform on TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So stay tuned for sure.
Awesome. Thanks again. It's been a great session. We encourage you to engage with us, engage with Andy on LinkedIn and EyePop on LinkedIn. Share your thoughts. We would love to know what you'd like to see in future Zeal sessions. So please share those thoughts and ideas as well. Thank you all, and stay curious. Have a great day.